My name is Dan Fantasia. I'm the president of Treeline Incorporated, the #1 sales recruiting firm in the United States. I'm joined today by a candidate, a client, a partner, and a friend. Through my own experiences, I've worked with him to scale companies and take them to the next level. He graduated Notre Dame. He played for Lou Holtz on the 1988 National Championship football team. He has an MBA from Northwestern. He led many companies as a CRO and currently advises high-growth firms as their key advisor and operating partner. I invited him here today because he's positive, he's passionate, he's incredibly knowledgeable. He's just a great all-around guy. So today I'd like to introduce you to Kevin McShane from HKW.
Thanks, Dan, and hi everyone. Before we get started, that's a very, very nice introduction, Dan. But I'm a Chicago Bulls fan. I'm a Chicago Bears fan. I'm not a Celtics, Bruins, Red Sox, Patriots. And so now Dan giving me that very nice intro, I'm very flattered because I'm not a true blue Boston sports fan. But kidding aside, it's an honor, Dan, to join you here this afternoon on this live podcast to exchange some ideas on best practices, how to optimize team and organizational performance. But just before we kind of get into it, just a quick thank you, Dan, to you and your team. Full disclosure to your audience, as Dan mentioned, Dan and I have been working together for many years now. And Dan and his team Treeline, have really helped us identify great candidates, great talent across numerous teams to help us build and scale our teams across the portfolio. So, Dan, thank you. And terrific job across all of these projects that you and I have worked on, and looking forward to working with you and your team in the future. So by way of background, I have a 20-year career rooted in the tech space, 3-time chief revenue officer at private equity-backed companies. I was a member of a leadership team at 3 different companies through the capital raise stage, and all 3 reached successful exits. And I was a member of a leadership team that helped the company through the growth, scale, and exit stage. It was one of the private equity's largest portfolio companies, and that investment team asked me if I would essentially join their firm, essentially as a fractional chief revenue officer across their portfolio. So currently I'm an operating partner at a PE firm, and my partner and I, Mike Hilliard, head up our go-to-market practice. So as Dan kind of alluded to, so where it all began, believe it or not, when people meet me, they really don't believe it. But I was a member of Coach Lou Holtz's football teams at Notre Dame, 1986 through the 89 season. And that would include the 1988 National Championship. And Dan, being a huge sports fan, I have the feeling you're going to ask a follow-up question on Lou Holtz.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple of questions, actually. You made the transition from CRO to operating partner, and I'm certain that there's a bunch of folks watching today. What was that like? What was the impetus behind it, and was it challenging?
Oh, the transition from CRO to yeah. So for sure, it's very different. It's similar in some ways, but it's different in other ways. What I would say is, you try to do the very best you can with the team that you have, and if you do a great job, and then some people start kind of noticing. And so I built a playbook with other members of my team, go-to-market playbook, how we build and scale the sales organization, build and scale demand gen marketing, build and scale customer success. And we've taken that playbook really into the portfolio. And so now it's kind of a proven playbook on how we help companies really accelerate their revenue, recurring revenue, how we help them scale, and hopefully and ideally get them in a great spot down the road for a potential exit.
Yeah. I mean, you've had so much success, right? You've helped so many companies grow. Can you think of like one, or what would be the most important lesson that you learned playing for Coach Holtz,
Right.
right? And what was that? Like, can you think of one thing that has really been a lesson for you as you've grown, that you've taken from, sports and brought to the companies that you've grown?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's true. I was one of the very first recruits to commit to Coach Lou Holtz when he came to Notre Dame, and he was hired back when he was hired back in early 1986. Notre Dame had he was hired to reverse the downward spiral. The 5 previous seasons prior to him coming to South Bend were very mediocre. The team was really not only winning about half of their games during the season. And, you fast forward, he's now recognized as one of the greatest turnaround stories in college football, culminating in that 1988 national championship. So Lou Holtz is known for being a disciplinarian. Dan, I can assure you of that. I found myself uncomfortably in his office from time to time. He's known for having a relentless attention to detail. That I can attest to. He's known for having this great focus on fundamentals like blocking and tackling and practice and practice and practice. And that I can attest to. And he's widely known for being a great motivator. But I'd like to highlight one side of Lou Holtz's leadership that really didn't make it into the history books or really well known. And here's what it is, in my opinion. He genuinely cares about every single person on the team, regardless of the role or tenure or status. I can tell you, Dan, I was a third stringer. I was that kid that had to compete nitty gritty, had to scratch and claw every single day at practice just to eke out a little playing time. He cared about me and all of my teammates, all the same, right? And he cared about and he got to know everybody in the program. That's the managers. These are student managers. There's 150 student managers. He got to know the managers. He got to know their story. He built relationships across the university. We used to call it across the street, the academic side. He built relationships there. He built relationships with the alumni group. He built relationships with what we call Notre Dame ND Nation. He had that magic that made everybody feel important. They were an important part of our team. They were an important part of our success. And he was counting, regardless if you're the first string or third string, maybe you're a student manager, maybe you were a team trainer, maybe you were on the medical staff, maybe you're in the equipment room, maybe you were just a student in the dorm, and he was counting on you to show up on Saturday at the big game to help the team win. Now, here's the application for business. The best CEOs, the best leaders of teams, the best leaders of organizations, they have that same genuine caring about each and every single person in the organization, regardless of role, regardless of tenure. And I really do think that was the secret sauce of Lou Holtz and what made him unique, made him a great leader, and ultimately built great loyalty with all the people, all the players and members of his staff and team throughout the years.
You're like that, right? I mean, you're just like that. The team loves you. Our team loves you, right? You're dynamic. You're motivated. The candidates, when you interview candidates, they fall in love with you, right? They are learning about the company, but they're bought in. They get excited because they get an opportunity to talk to you. And you are dynamic. You're caring. You listen. I mean, those pieces, I don't know if that was just who you were, if you learned that along the way, if you learned that with Lou or what happened, but you definitely clearly have it. And sometimes I wonder, we work with a lot of companies. You clearly have been incredibly successful with our firm. You've helped a lot of companies scale and grow. Can you think of like one big example or one specific example of how you scale and grow these winning teams? Like what is it?
Yeah, great $1 million question, Dan. And thank you for the very kind thoughts. Work in progress, though. Work in progress. And we're never there. We never arrive. But we do have a go-to-market playbook, right? Our three big pillars in our playbook are people, process, technology. But we customize that playbook based on the specific situation, the product market fit, the situation, so we can hit the ground running, build demand gen. I build the ideal customer profile, the sales process, customer success. But here's how we're unique, in my opinion. Our secret sauce is everybody's got a playbook, right? That's really not the secret sauce. We're fully committed to build that organization from the ground up. So what we do is we take great care to identify the right talent, great talent. And these are all kind of maybe entry-level roles, Dan. But we view these roles as these are our future stars. These are our future top performers. These are our future leaders of our teams. And so that's maybe where we're different. I'll give you a quick example. A bunch of years ago, I was giving a helping hand to a pretty large sales organization. The VP had about 20 field salespeople. Pretty large organization, and they had 4 BDRs. So I'm getting to know the VP sales. They were flat, kind of moderate growth, and I saw in the data that the BDRs were not terribly productive. So when I asked him about it, he was almost kind of dismissive of the BDR team and just said, "Oh yeah, they're kind of up and coming, and they'll get there someday. I don't know if they're going to be successful," just kind of putting some shade on that particular team. So when I got to meet the BDR team, of course, I was really interested in their perspective, their point of view. And it's pretty quickly like they felt disconnected from the larger sales team. They weren't getting the tools, the resources, the support. So naturally, they were not as successful driving leads and helping drive pipeline for the sales organization. Now, compare that to some other teams. I'll just pick on one that I'm currently working with. And we really see these the BDRs, the business development reps, the inside sales, the sales development reps, really invaluable to our success right now, not in the future, but right now. And we train them. We want to invest in them. We want to support the heck out of them, coaching, mentoring, because in my point of view, the reason why we hired that group is we want to get them promoted. We want to get them promoted, whether it's BDR or SDR, promoted to become a renewal sales specialist, running a book of business, or become a sales AE. Running a territory, a junior sales representative. And that timeline is really 12 to 18 to 24 months. So that's really our secret sauce. If you got inside our teams and got to talk to some of these BDRs and SDRs and inside salespeople, they're incredibly motivated, incredibly talented people. And we're just there to kind of help them in their own career journey. Give them that coaching, give them that training, and so they can be on track and hit their milestones that they want to hit in their career, and move them through so that they're leading a territory. In some cases, they're leading a team. Maybe they're the head of the BDR team, or they're head of a territory. So that really is our secret sauce, is really investing in the folks that we bring in, because we really see them as the stars of tomorrow and the future leaders of our teams.
When you look at the teams you build, it's amazing to think about how important, like you had mentioned earlier, how every single person contributes. But what's so interesting is that the BDRs you're seeing as the foundation and the future to the success of the organization. So now you have BDRs, you have AEs, you have mid-market account execs, you have enterprise account execs, you have a whole slew of different players in the organization. How do you build culture, right? Because now you're looking at a different demographic. You're just looking at different individuals. So how do you bring the culture together when there's just so many types of professionals in the organization?
I love it. Yeah, that's again another million dollar question, because I believe culture is really where we want to differentiate, right? And that's really where we want to be, is develop this great culture. Dan, let me share with you one of my favorite quotes. On any team, in any organization, all responsibility for success and failure rests with the leader, which is you. The leader must own everything in his or her world. There's no one else to blame. The leader must acknowledge mistakes, admit failures, take ownership of the team, develop a plan to win, unquote. It's now this famous quote by Jocko Willink, who's a former U.S. Navy SEAL, who wrote the leadership book, Extreme Ownership. It's made a huge impact on me and the teams that we work in. The best leaders don't point a finger, Dan. They don't blame others. They take 100% responsibility, and they develop a plan to win, and they execute. So let me give you an example of how we take that ownership and apply it to our culture. So in our teams, our sales process, our sales qualification methodology is called MEDDIC, which is really the gold standard in enterprise sales. And I host on a daily basis what we call the deal desk across numerous teams inside our portfolio. So the first timers that are going to present on deal desk are sometimes a little anxious, a little nervous. They'll call me the night before, like, "Oh, Kevin, this is going to be a gotcha, and I'm going to be embarrassed in front of my teammates tomorrow. And it's just going to be like a forecast call. I don't have enough pipeline. I'm not winning enough deals. I'm nowhere near my quota. Can I take a pass?" And, it takes a while. I work that person through, because that's not what we're about. Our culture is, in this deal desk, it's really designed to get, when the tide rises, all boats rise. And so it's really designed to check the ego at the beginning of the meeting. Check your ego at the very beginning of the day. The top performers love the deal desk because they want the coaching. They want their team to identify some blind spots that they got in the deal. The deal desk reinforces the sales qualification methodology that we're running, and it is accountability. And it's the whole community. So whether you're the inside sales team, BDRs, SDRs, renewal specialists, sales AEs, territory managers, the VP, we have marketing, we have customer success, we got product. We have all of these different roles, and we come together as a community to really problem solve on a particular deal using our framework. And that builds winning culture. That reinforces our sales qualification. And so here's what's really cool about how we build great culture inside our teams. The deal desk. As you probably well know, the average winning percentage in SaaS, enterprise software, is on qualified deals is 30-35% winning percentage. The deals over the years, the deals that we bring on deal desk typically have upwards to an 80% winning percentage. And so what that creates is, once it gets going, great demand. The sellers want to bring their deals onto deal desk because they're checking the ego. They know it's a free environment where nobody's going to judge. We're going to use our framework, use our qualification methodology of MEDDIC. We're going to arm that seller with a better closing strategy. And the deal, they can take their winning percentage rate from 30-40% to 80%. And that's how you build winning culture within the teams.
You know what I love about that is, well, there's obviously accountability there, but it's the open dialogue to help sales reps stay honest, right? When you're feeling intimidated, now you're inflating your forecast. You're not honest with yourself. There's a lot of hope in your forecast. And as a result, there's not as much transparency. And so at the end of the month or the quarter, when you're a CRO, you're like, what is going on here? How did these deals all fall through? But I love your process and your philosophy because it holds everyone accountable. Everyone has transparency, and it keeps everyone honest and headed in the right direction.
Yeah, just real quick, just because you're onto it. You're really onto it because in my own sales career leading teams, you're exactly right. Some sellers would like, oh, they're not sure of the deal and they're trying to hide it and maybe make it a little bit more when it sounds like. And that's not our model. We kind of look at it, we go at it like head on, like we want to find the blind spots. So the top performers, they know, through Medic, they know, whether it's the metrics, the economic buyer, the decision process, decision criteria, implicate the pain, the paper process, the champion competition. It's like a checklist, like a pilot flying a plane. You got to be all green on the checklist before the pilot takes that plane out to the runway and takes off. And so we have a culture where identifying a blind spot in a deal is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. A good thing because now we can go and get it solved in the next meeting or in the next step in the sales process. And or it's okay if it's not qualified. Maybe they don't have budget. We don't have, the decision process. It's not qualified. And it's okay in my teams to, hey, put that deal to the side. Let's kick it over to marketing. Let's put it on a tickler, some sort of campaign. And maybe, timing will change, next year. It's okay to qualify out deals. And on Deal Desk, we love to identify blind spots because blind spots are not a bad thing. They're a good thing because we can go get them fixed. And I think that really does influence and accelerate our win rates, conversion rates, and shrinks our average sales cycle and increases deal size because of the process, because of the sales play that we run is a very standard sales process. And it's a culture of bringing people together to work on deals. And that, and again, when the tide rises, all boats rise.
I love that. I love that term, the blind spot. So when you're going to your portfolio companies and you're giving them advice and you're scaling growth and you're building winning teams, are there any blind spots or what are the key characteristics you're looking for in the salespeople you hire? And what are the blind spots that you're trying to identify to missing and making a bad hire?
Yeah, exactly, Dan. Such a great question. So I'll share with you kind of a very personal, so years ago, not all that long ago, I was up and coming VP of sales, trying to figure things out, and I'm leading a team and there's no, new pressures and all that. So I realized, Dan, that some of the most important metrics that I was being measured on as the team leader were underperforming. So sales productivity, which is defined as quota attainment across the entire team, was way lower than what it should have been, which is a big red flag. And that's a reflection on me. And not all of my new hires were successful or being ramped up and being successful. So I knew that as a VP sales, I had to get this fixed or it's going to really derail me in my career and my teams will not be successful. So I went out to the VP sales community, sales chief, the chief revenue officer community. And I just started asking a lot of questions. What do you do in the hiring process? What are you looking for? What mistakes have you made? And I learned a heck of a lot. Years later, here's the way I would summarize what we're doing differently. So there's really 5 attributes that, based on the data, when we do a regression analysis and we look at the top the bell curve, the top performers. So there's really 5 attributes that time and time again really prove out. And then we interview for. And the first one is the first attribute and the most important attribute, in my opinion, is coachability. And we interview for coachability, and I'll share that in a second. The second attribute is IQ. The third is curiosity. Think of like the Rubik's Cube. Like, how does this company, how do they make money? What's their market? Who do they compete against? What's their value proposition? The fourth is grit, work ethic. It's that daily discipline. How much time am I dedicating to prospecting and building pipelines? Really being dedicated and that work ethic. And then 5 is being a team player, not trying to climb over people, but, really being open and helping everybody on the team. So let me give you a quick example of how we interview for coachability, which in my opinion is the number one attribute. Whether you're a BDR, whether you're a sales AE candidate, maybe you're a VP sales candidate, and even, Dan, I get to participate in CEO searches. And again, time and time again, the most important attribute of a great CEO is that coachability. So regardless of role. So when I'm doing an interview with a sales candidate, I'll pretty quickly in the first interview ask them if they'd be okay to do a role play. Maybe I'm a prospect, I'm on your list. You're going to call me up and you're not trying to sell me anything. You're just trying to get me to commit to a meeting, maybe the next day with you and your sales AE, what have you. And so they get after it. They start, I'm looking at body language. Some jump right into it. Some are like a little bit hesitant. So that's an indicator. And they go through the role play, nothing more than 2 minutes. And now we debrief. And I asked the candidate, what did they do well? And I'm listening for some candidates. Oh, I really knocked it out of the park. It was awesome. Which isn't it's not a great answer. Or I'm listening for the candidates that said, I did okay, but I stumbled here. And, they're kind of self-respective, right? They're kind of looking at themselves like, it wasn't great. So then I give them some positive feedback. And then I ask Dan, do you mind if I give you some coaching, some feedback? And I just give them one thing to think about, maybe or to change or to tweak. And then I ask the candidate, would you want to retry and redo that role play? And now what I'm listening for, Dan, is can they quickly, on the fly, quick on their feet, take that coaching, take that piece of feedback and quickly integrate it into their cold call. And that's really a good indicator of kind of coachability, is how quickly can they take some feedback and put it into their messaging and adopt. So, really nothing matters more than your desire to exceed. And we have a pretty rigorous interview process because ultimately, as the sales chief or VP sales, VP marketing, customer operations, the most important decisions that you will make as a leader are the people you bring onto the team. And I can tell you, I've stumbled my own career earlier in my career because I didn't have a rock solid interview process. We didn't have the scorecard. We didn't have good scripting. And I really was paying a price for it. And I would highly recommend for any leader that's doing interviewing, building his or her team, really spend some good time. There's some great best practices out there, but spend time on your interview process, identifying that profile, identifying the attributes, and then interviewing against those attributes all along the interview process. And then once you have that person, that day one, really having a very structured onboarding and training process to quickly get that person productive.
You were talking about the most important, success factor for CEOs was to make sure they build and hire an excellent team, right? Just great people. When you look at all of the portfolio companies you work with, is there any other, is there a single most important, success factor to their success as they accelerate growth and, hire and build the team?
Yeah, exactly. So I would just go back to culture. I think, the best leaders, because everybody has, we have every company This is why we invested. There's great product. We think the world, it's a great product market fit. Building the structure, building comp plans, building territory assignments. That's the structure, the foundation. Very important. But the difference between growing 25% and growing 50 or 75%, scaling the organization, to me, it's culture. I think as a leader, you're ultimately the most important responsibilities provide our people with their own roadmap, their own journey on our team, in their company, to move so they can hit milestones. They feel like they're being invested in. We're investing the coaching, the mentoring, and really developing that layer of talent, and not just lip service, but really showing candidates here on our org chart, this person started as an individual contributor, this person started as a BDR, this person. So let me give you a quick example. Almost 2 years ago now, I started with the team down in Houston, Texas, software company. And I was getting to meet the team, and one person on the sales team really kind of stood out. Very smart. He was with the company like a year and a half. He was certainly really good in front of the customer. He's kind of hitting his numbers. But all the other salespeople on the team would kind of come to him before their meeting or after. So he was, seemed to be like the popular guy on the team. So I got to know him. And he really wasn't crazy. I asked him about, did he ever consider being a team leader or some sort of, and he's like, no. And, it's private equities. I don't really know private equity. And I don't want to, I'm happy to help out my colleagues. That's what I do. I'm kind of the player coach. So he had some anxiousness, some reservations about taking the next step in his career. And I said, listen, partner, I see some some extraordinary talent that you may not see yet. I certainly do. Would you be willing to go on a journey with me and just kind of experiment? And he's like, well, what does that look like? And I said, well, maybe you're the official player coach. Maybe you're the director, next quarter of the sales team. And, so he agreed. And him and I partnered up together. We were learning kind of new skills, kind of how to run the team, to run the pipeline, how to do one-on-ones, how to do, the forecast, how to pull up the forecast. And he's a natural. He's a natural leader. And we got to the Q4 of the first year, and then he was the official director of the sales team. And he continued on his development, on his own journey, getting better and better and better as a leader. And then at the sales kickoff, this is the first year post-investment. And that sales kickoff in early January, I was delighted to see that he got promoted to VP sales of a private equity, high growth company. And I tell you, of all the leaders that I've come across the last couple of years, he's got extraordinary talent. He's got all the tools he needs to have this incredible career in leadership. And that's the secret sauce. At the end of the day, Dan, that's the secret sauce. Great leaders can spot talent. Not everybody's going to become the VP sales. Not everybody wants that job, right? But really identifying what somebody's good at, where we kind of see, maybe it's, I've hired BDRs, and no, they don't want sales. They want to be in customer success because they're emotional IQ. They just love helping customers. Yeah. But it's really, maybe it's marketing. Maybe it's over in the other aisle. It's in operations or finance or product. But it's really getting people on their own journey and building career trajectory. I believe that's our secret sauce, and why across all of our teams, across the portfolio, have this, we're scaling quickly because the folks on our teams know that we care, we're investing in them. And I believe that's our secret sauce to success.
Yeah. I mean, your ability to build winning teams is there. I mean, we've seen it. So I guess I have a a different question, right?
Sure.
One of the things we're going to talk about today is accelerating growth. So when a founder or when a company receives capital, right, you know how to build a winning team, you know how to take them to the next level. But when they receive capital, because they're going to need it to grow, when they receive that capital, are there any expectations, or what is the expectation for a founder and a CEO? They know they want to grow. They understand it. They want to build the culture. But what would you give a founder, listening to this right now, advice on, or how could you set their expectation of what will happen when you do receive capital?
Yeah, another great question. Because there's always sometimes a little anxiety when a team takes in some investment. The first part would be, let's go on this journey together. We're partners. When I'm introduced into a team, I'm a member of that team. I don't work for the private equity firm. I'm a member of that team. And so the first piece of advice would be, hey, what's working? There's a lot of things that are working because the finance guys made an investment in your company, in your organization. So what's working well? And then the next question, Dan, would be, hey, what's not working so great? What's keeping you up at night? That's what we're listening for, because they know intuitively, boy, if we put some more dollars towards product marketing or product development, or Joyce, if we just had some more demand gen, if I had a BDR to maybe if we opened up the partner channel. So we conduct an audit. It's very collaborative. I work with the CEO and his or her leadership team. Conduct an audit. What's working and what's not? What are some of our blind spots? So typically speaking, we kind of want to look at the metrics, right? So net and gross revenue retention are super important to us. What's our cost of acquisition? What's the average sales cycle? What's our sales pipeline coverage? What are some of our conversion rates across sales stage and across sellers? Sales productivity, which I mentioned. How many people across the inside sales team, the AE team, maybe it's the partner channel team, how many people across the team are achieving their goals and quotas and targets? What's our close one winning percentage, our average deal margin, and what's the marketing contribution to pipeline? So we look at those metrics, and the ones that are doing well, man, let's hit the accelerator, right? And if we do have some kind of underperforming metrics, it's a good thing, not a bad thing, because now we have a bunch of ideas that we'll put on the table, and we'll dialogue on what we've seen. We want to hear from the team, and then together we co-create kind of our game plan, right? Game plan to win. So it's this idea of what's working, great. Let's continue down that path. What are the metrics that are underperforming? Let's brainstorm how we can start to address the underperforming metrics. And typically 9 times out of 10, we can start to get those underperforming metrics fixed pretty quickly, literally within the first 60 to 90 days.
Is that the biggest disconnect? Does for a CEO or a founder or the executive team, do they feel like the company's working actually very well? It seems as though we're doing very well. We've been growing at this scale. We have this capital. Where is the rub? Is there any rub? We're a privately held company. We don't have any capital, right? But what would be, for me personally, what would be that? I'd want to know, all right, what am I getting into? What are the challenges? And where's the rub? Where's the disconnect between what we're trying to do presently as a high growth company and what's going to happen when private equity comes in?
Yeah. So not a rub, I think the opportunity. So there's been more and more examples the last year or two when we go into, when we join a new team, and the ideal customer profile is this person. And usually it's a little bit lower in the organization. They're buying an app or they're buying a tool. And then, Dan, the key metric for us is what's the average deal size?
Yeah.
And so in some cases, the average deal size is lower. It's 5K, it's 7K, 10K, what have you. And then we start to think about increasing what is the real value prop? Are we an app? Are we a tool? Or are we more of a platform for a larger ecosystem? This is where Medic, and if anybody out there is not familiar with Medic, please take a peek at Medic, because this is where Medic can really help an organization get to different stakeholders in the business, get to the business stakeholder, increase those deal sizes. Because now we go from we're just a tool or an app to do a calculation or a formula to we're the ecosystem driving that organization. It takes some product development sometimes, but more times than not, it's just we're too low in the organization. Our value prop is too kind of tactical. And we were really what our job is solving the business problems of the team and of the organization, of the customer. So back to your question, if there is a disconnect between the private equity guys and then the team or the company, then I take that responsibility. I failed in terms of creating that vision, gaining alignment on our vision and mission, because that's the first thing that we have to do is really take a step back and say, okay, with this new investment, where can we go? What new markets can we get into? How can we go from whatever, a $10 million, $15 million company to 50 million, 75 million? And that's the fun part of being on that journey.
Is there one, like, as you're going through that journey, is there one single most important factor or success factor for a company when they are working with private equity?
Sure. Yeah, it's another great question. So it's super important to keep all the things that are working, keep them going. Don't mess with it. Don't mess with it. However, but simultaneously, let's be open to trying some new techniques and some new tactics. So the worst words in the language for me is this is the way we've always done it around here. So one of the, I think, my recommendations for anybody who's part of a team and there's some new investment going on, or it's new stakeholders, new partners. Number one is embrace change. You want to be on that side of the ledger. Embrace change. Be part of the solution. I think 3 is have an unrelentless focus on driving value for customers. And then be a great team player. I mean, any of those characteristics, any of those attributes, somebody like in my position, I'm looking for people that want to be part of the change, that love the history, love the legacy of the company, love how they got there, right? And we want to accelerate that. But at the same time, they want to be part of the change. They want to be part of the new solution. They want to be challenged, in their own career growth and trajectory. I love, I mentioned the use case on Joe, the VP sales. He was an individual contributor, but had a wealth of talent and potential, and he just needed a partner to kind of get him on, a different trajectory. Now he's running the team. And another example of that would be we just promoted one of our BDRs, and she's now the team leader. Her, the CEO and I taught her emotional IQ is off the chart. We think she's got a photographic memory. She's great. She's asking Medic questions that I don't have salespeople after 3 years are asking. And that's another example where when our investment comes in, there's just more opportunity for everybody. It's all the things that you were like mad about before the investment. Oh, if we did more marketing, we could do more conferences, or we could be on social media, or we could do more campaigns, or I need product. All those things that you're kind of mad about, now we have. So together as a team, let's put that the game plan together. And at the same time, if you want a different career, if you want to accelerate your career, you're at the right place, because that's our secret sauce. We as a member of the team, as the leader, I want to bring people on their own career trajectory. I want to move people out of those roles, get them promoted, get them into something doing really cool that they're excited about. And if we do that, we build that culture inside the team. Look out! Now you got a high growth, great company that's could be a unicorn in a market.
I love it. I love it. I can see the transition from CRO to private equity and how you add so much value. I mean, there's so much here. There's so much information. It's super valuable. So I appreciate it. But before I let you go, Kevin, I do have one question for you. And that is, when you look at your career, all the things you've done, what do you think the toughest lesson has been in your career to this point?
Oh, wow. Certainly that's a curveball question. I'll tell you, I'll open up. I'll be vulnerable, Dan, just because you and I have been partners a long time. And I don't know if you know this, but so I was a sales chief at a startup. It was a Berlin, Germany-based company, and I was there, and I built the European team, and I built the U.S. team. And I was there as the sales chief about 2.5 years, and great success. We went from like $1 million, it was like services revenue, to about 20 million in recurring revenue within a 3-year period. So July 4th, 2017, I got a call from the CEO based in Berlin. And he just said, "Hey, the board, we're going to go in a different direction. Thank you for your service." And it was a kick in the gut, Dan, because I'd given all my heart, my soul, built these teams. And it was tough. It was like a big kick in the gut. I was devastated, absolutely devastated. So I had to go on my grief. I grieved. My wife said, "Okay, you get 24 hours, nothing more, and then get back up on your feet." And within 60 days later, I was being interviewed by a private equity firm for a CRO position within their largest portfolio company that needed some help. And I started 70 days later as the CRO. And 2 years later, it was one of the best exits in that private equity firm's history. And I've been working for that investment team really ever since. So, I go back to, maybe we end where we started with talking about what I learned from Coach Holtz. I remember, honest to goodness, I remember him saying, "Gentlemen, no pity party. Show me a successful person, and I'll show you somebody who's overcome adversity somewhere along the way." When that door shuts on you in your career, I'm here to tell you another door is going to open. I know it's tough at the time. Another door is going to open. No pity party, and get back up on your feet, dust yourself off. Think about what you got to do better. Don't blame it on your boss. Don't blame it on we didn't have the right marketing. Don't blame it on the product. But really have that introspection of what can I do better next time around. And I promise you, if you take that kind of mindset, you will be super successful in your next role, and you'll continue on your upward trajectory in your own career.
It's great advice. It's so relevant right now. I'm certain there are plenty of CROs and executives that are watching this right now that are finding some adversity in this particular job market. And I love what your wife said, 24-hour, you get 24 hours to mourn this and then move on. And then, as you had mentioned, you move on to bigger and better things. But I guarantee people are going to relate to this. So before we go, how can people find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure, Dan. Kevin McShane on LinkedIn. And I'm connected to you on LinkedIn, Dan, and happy to, if people are interested in continuing the conversation, or if I can ever help out, it's about playing it forward, really giving back. I certainly, it's not false humility. The amount of coaches I've had, the amount of mentors I've had, there's been a lot of people in my own career that, "Kevin, you're a little off track. Let's get you back on track." And if I can ever help out anybody, I'm happy to do so, because Lordy knows I had plenty of great mentors and coaches and teachers in my own life to help me get back on track when I got knocked down.
Awesome. Kevin, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure. Thank you for taking time out of your day to talk with us here on LinkedIn.
It was my pleasure, Dan. Thank you. And again, thank you to Treeline, Team Treeline, for all that you've done for us, and looking forward to continuing that partnership going forward.
Thanks, man.